I look pretty today. I do. Oh my God, I love when I look pretty. I'm on my period too. So like when I feel pretty on my period, it means I am pretty. It means I'm the prettiest little princess in the whole wide world. Here we go. Okay. The amount of times I've tried to make this podcast is insane. I love making podcasts. They're my favorite thing in the world. I can yap and yap and yap for hours and ages and forever. The biggest problem is doing it at a hostel because like there's always people. I get distracted. It's a little bit of an issue. No one's fault but my own, but I've been wanting to make this podcast for a while because it's something that I feel very strongly about, and it's been plaguing my mind for the last couple of days. Self-worth should not be tied to financial success. This might seem very, very obvious to most people, but I think that it is one of the hardest things to truly wrap your mind around. And as individuals in today's day and age, we are attaching our self-worth as human beings, our success as human beings, with our ability to be successful in a traditional sense, when it has to do with money and jobs and career and the next best thing. The reason why I decided to talk about this is because I have a friend. I think truly one of the most inspiring people I've ever met. She's someone who I could only describe as a unicorn itself, like magic wherever she steps. And she said just about the saddest thing to me a couple of days ago. I used to be so inspiring. Now, what's there to be inspired by? My business hasn't been doing well in the last year. So a little bit of background on this character. She created a business from her gut, truly stunning, stellar, marvelous business that she created from scratch. When I mean from scratch, I don't mean she's just an entrepreneur and she put a lot of time, energy, and effort, which is always admirable. I mean, her mom had her at 16. I mean, she put herself through college. I mean, the world was stacked against her and she proved them wrong by creating a business. She climbed the ladder. That is an inspiring thing to do. And the business that she created was mystical, magical, and powerful. And more than anything, successful. She started making more money than she had ever had, more money than her family had ever made. She was inspiring within her group of friends, within her family, within her circle. Like she was always that it person. And in the last couple of years, or in the last year, her business started to have ebbs and flows, ups and downs, something that she had never really had to go through before. And it's just so sad because I can see the struggle, like the innate struggle of tying her self-worth to the state of her business. Well, honey, baby, I'm about to tell you. In medieval Europe, Europe was mostly Catholic. And for the Catholic world, greed was a deadly sin. Making profit was negative. Like it was truly like the worst thing you could do. Bankers, people who made money on money, usurers, went to the same level as hell as sodomites, as gays, just to give you an idea. Again, no issues with the gays, no issues with the bankers. Do whatever makes you happy. But that's how negative it was in order to try to make money, in order to try to hold profit, in order to just have money, to have money in the Middle Ages. That was greedy, that was mischievous, that was evil. That wasn't something you were supposed to do. Essentially, working too much was actually seen as something bad. Making money was seen as something even worse. But living in community, living in slow lifestyles, dedicating your life to the community, to the church, that was actually positive. The real reasoning for that can be mostly because the Catholic Church was this giant institution that tried to tell everybody that, hey, if you want to connect to God, you have to connect to us. What should you do with your money? Well, give it to us. But what ended up happening was there was a Protestant Reformation in 1492. Essentially, you had a group of Christians that took one look at the Catholic Church and said, you know what? I disagree with how you view God. I disagree with how you do things. I disagree with you as an institution. Screw you. Actually, we have a better way of connecting to God. And that is through the individual. Instead of going through an institution, I myself can pick up a Bible and connect directly to the great man above. And so the Protestants made note, like, why would I continue to give my money to an institution in order to connect to God? You know what I mean? Like, me and the man above, we are tight. So what am I going to do? I'm going to keep the money. And you know what? I'm not only going to keep the money. They started to believe that making money was good, that working was good. The more that you worked, the more that you were a productive member of society, the more money you made, the closer you were to God. And that's when we started to form a link between financial success and God. Because what ended up happening? We have the two main centers where capitalism began, the UK and the US. Those were also Protestant centers. So the people working within capitalism were Protestants. They had this similar thought of working better is good, working harder is good. Why? Because it brings me closer to God. That train of thought was imbued within capitalism, and that started to spread throughout the world as capitalism started to spread throughout the world. But what ended up happening is throughout the ages and throughout the decades, as things became more secular, as people became more atheist, it's like we threw away the religious reasoning for it and we kept the message behind it. So instead of working hard for God, we kept the working hard. Instead of making profit is good because it brings us closer to God, we kept the making profit is good. So there's a sort of like religious reason, there's a backing, there's a higher purpose to being productive, to working harder, to making money. Because in essence, it started like that. It started with a higher purpose. We just forgot the reason of the higher purpose. It's just important to note that financial success started to be quickly connected to our ability to connect to God. And then throughout the ages, we forgot that we started attaching financial success to God because we threw out the God part, but we kept the financial success as important for some reason. And I think that very much trickles down, and you can see it in every single part of society today. And I think you can see it everywhere, in the media, in the books that we read. Like, everything is always placed for productivity. It's placed for getting ahead. It's placed for doing better in your career. There's pills nowadays in order for you to be able to concentrate more. People take wellness seriously, not to be able to be more mindful. Like, people wake up at like 5 a.m. to meditate. It's not to connect with oneself. It's not in order to be more mindful. It is to calm down the mind and bring down anxiety and be able to concentrate more for the workday ahead. It kind of seems to be our conversations everywhere. What the next career is, what the next job is, what the next thing you're supposed to study. Like, it is truly, in essence, in every part of our everyday life. And I see this more than anything. My little brother, I love him dearly. He just graduated college. He hasn't been able to get a job. And I remember this happened to me, and I think this happens to a lot of people. But whenever somebody comes up to him, they ask him, like, hey, what are you doing now? You just graduated. Fantastic. What are your next plans? I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to figure it out. He seems so sad saying that. He seems so disappointed in himself, just being like, I don't know, man. I'm just kind of trying to figure it out. He shouldn't be sad. He shouldn't be disappointed. That's a part of life. There's nothing wrong with not knowing what your next steps is, especially when you're young, dumb, and like 22. But I can see it. I can see it in his face, and I can feel it because I went through that. I also have family that I love dearly, who are trying to get their businesses ahead. And I can see it in their faces, how tired they are of having to explain to people like, yeah, I'm trying. I really am. Hopefully it will go good someday. And it's like they're disappointed in themselves because their business hasn't been able to succeed. Meanwhile, there's always 1,000 million which ways why a business isn't succeeding. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the individual itself. It could be the state of the world, the economic state, luck, draw, privileges, like you never effing know. But again, career seems to be the front and focus of our everyday lives, of our everyday conversations, of our wellness, of our habits, of everything. And that's why we start attaching our self-worth to our careers, to what we're doing, to how much money we're making, to how financially successful we are. which I always think is so peculiar. Like, it's truly, truly, truly so peculiar that we started to attach our self-worth as humans, our self-worth as individuals, to our careers, to our ability to make money, to our ability to be financially successful. Why on earth do we do that? Because if you think about it, our success as humans has nothing to do with our careers. It has nothing to do with how much money we make. Our success as humans, at least in my view, has always been innate. It is always part of like a personality. And the best way I can describe this is my mom. I think my mom is the person that I find the most inspiring in the world. Like, if I aspire to be like anyone, it is like my mom. Like, truly just thinking about her, I'm gonna cry. Like, I love my mom so much. And my mom, she's very successful in her job. She's an economist. She's got a high-ranking position in the World Bank. She like solves inflation. Like, she's a known girl. She's got articles. She's done well in business. And I'm so proud of her for that. But I couldn't care less about her career. If you were to ask me what I find most inspiring about my mom, the last thing I would say is, oh, she works at the World Bank. No, that's cool. That's what she does. But that's not what I find inspiring. What I find inspiring about my mom is that she has such a patience dealing with people, the patience that she has dealing with los berrinches de mi papá, the love that she can hold towards other people, whether it be members of her family or complete strangers, her ability to connect to every single individual she meets. She's a beloved daughter, she's a beloved mother, she's a beloved friend. She is good, and she is kind, and she is gentle, and she is driven, and she is ambitious, and she is wonderful. These are all innate personality traits that I find inspiring and have nothing to do with her career. I would be inspired and proud regardless of what she did in her 9-to-5. And when I think about the people that I most care about in my life, once again, I don't really give 3 shits about what they do in their 9-to-5s. I give 3 shits about how they relate to me. I find inspiring that my dad is so funny that he becomes like the center of the room when he's with his friends. He's the funny guy. About my little brother, he's got a way with words. Like, truly, 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 the way he sits and analyzes the world is so beautiful. Like, an artist can only do that. About my friends, the way that they put people before they put themselves sometimes, even to their own detriment. What I find most inspiring about people in general usually is the furthest thing from career. Yet we seem to attach our self-worth as individuals to our financial success. I literally almost didn't take a gap year because I was so terrified about the idea of like falling behind. I was terrified about taking a gap year, having everybody else get really, really ahead, and then suddenly I had a gap in my resume and I was never going to be able to get a job and I was going to be worthless. Like, I almost missed out on the biggest thing that has changed my life because I was afraid of being left behind, because I was afraid of not having something to say, because I was afraid of not having a career. And that's so sad. Like, truly, truly, that's so sad. I attached my self-worth on what I would be doing in my day-to-day, on the type of career, on the type of study, on the type of program I would have gotten into, which is so sad because I don't want my self-worth to be attached to a career. I don't want my self-worth to be attached on my looks. I don't want my self-worth to be attached on anything. I want my self-worth to be innate. The looks we can talk about in another time because honestly, aging is something that plagues my mind every single day. Mi abuelito, oh, I love him dearly. His life was ruined because he attached his self-worth to his job. He actually came from a pretty poor family. Well, actually, my great-grandma, she was like rich nobility, but she like left that whole life behind so that she could marry a mechanic who didn't have a last name, but we'll get into that in another episode. But my grandpa, he came from like a poor family, poor background, and he grew to have a really good position that paid really well in Colombia. He was making money. He was on top of the game. Like, he was the it person in his family. The company at some point went over. They had to let him go. And that took a big hit to his ego. If I'm not making money and I'm not bringing money to my family, like, what am I doing? I'm worthless. I'm a bad father. Like, no. There's so much more to being a father than like bringing money home. And he started to drink really heavily and basically ruined his ability to actually be a good father. And why did he start drinking heavily? Because he was sad. Because he felt worthless. So he wanted to kind of numb that pain. Why did he feel worthless? Because he no longer had a job. Because he no longer had a stable income. I just think that's so sad because he's not the only one. There are so many people out there that attach their worth to their careers. I know so many people that like literally have killed themselves. Not to get really dark, but like because they were so miserable, because they couldn't find a job, because they couldn't move ahead, because they couldn't bring money, because there was a lot of pressure. And I don't only mean like financial pressure, because financial pressure is harsh, don't get me wrong. I mean, they didn't feel worthy because they didn't have a worthy career. It fills me with rage because I want to be like, wake up. The reason why you feel like you need to work so hard is because the world told you you had to work so hard. And why did the world tell you you had to work so hard? Because actually you used to work hard for God. It's just that we forgot about the for God part. There was a religious part of it. Which again is fine. I guess I should have started with a disclaimer. I don't think that making money is bad. Making money is good. If you want to make money, fantastic. If you want to make money to go get your family out of poverty, do it. If you want to work hard in order to make money, in order to buy Ferrari, Chanel, or just to have money, fantastic. You want to make money to donate to charity? Good for you. Whatever gets you out of bed in the morning, fan-freaking-tastic. The problem starts when you associate your self-worth, your success as a human, with the ability to make money. Because at the end of the day, I promise you, you are so much more than that.